Hey, Franz.
Jon, good to see you again. It feels like it's only been 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, before that, though, it's been a while.
It has been. It's true.
Chicago was the last time we were together.
That's true. That was good fun.
.NEXT, that was, a month ago?
Yeah.
And then since I've been in Germany, doing a lot of edge work at the Hanover Messe show. Just mental, the amount of stuff going on there.
It's Messe, by the way, not
Messe,
Messi.
yeah.
It's not a football player. It's a German thing where you go and exhibit products.
Largest tech show of its kind in the world. Robots walking everywhere. But lots of interesting edge stuff, which I'll be another video. But, but in the meantime, we kind of were in Madrid at the same time. Me on holiday, you...
working, holiday working.
Yeah,
it all kind of blends anyway in our career, doesn't it?
But that's part of the Nutanix
Partner Advisory Board.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're invited there along with other partners across EMEA to meet with a few of the Nutanix channel execs and really just to strategize, brainstorm, talk about the challenges and how the partner relationship can be improved. Really want to give credit to Nutanix for doing that and putting a huge investment into that and listening to the partner community. And I mean, there were certain things, specific challenges that we've got, tabled them. During the break, I saw one of the ladies there straight on the phone to her colleagues already putting it on the agenda, discussing how they can fix this particular challenge. So having that kind of responsiveness from a partner is incredible because you're being heard and things are actually being done. And it's just it's one thing to listen, it's nothing to actually take action on what you've heard.
It's really good to see because there's stuff that people just don't see. Obviously, we have quite close relationships with the partner account team and account managers, and it is a very different experience than other vendors. So Chicago was mental. We were only there literally for the time of the show. And loads of announcements. I mean, I think, was it 137 announcements or something?
I thought it was 39. Was it 35? Major announcements. Okay. You probably got the tail end of all the other announcements, but they were probably...
And the number of sponsors was just mega. I'm just on every front. They yet again impressed me completely in kind of how deep they go in terms of the technologies. They want to be that full management layer across all the technologies. Don't necessarily want to be the supplier, which again I think is a really important thing. If you want to do containerization, you're free to use other container platforms and concentrate on the management and compliance through their platform. I think it's really strategically really good, but also great for me because it gives that choice. What were some of the big takeaways for you?
It's difficult to summarize this in a short period of time, isn't it? But I think it's sort of one platform to rule them all, if you want to call it that. I think Nutanix have embraced the fact that they They've always kind of been, multi-hardware vendor, multi-cloud. And now they're looking at this world where, people are doing containers, they're doing AI, they're doing virtual machines. And how do you create a platform that can accommodate all of those workloads? And at the same time, you still got your security, your governance, your management controls around that in a sort of a way that everyone knows and loves, right? Through Prism. The simplicity, the ease of use, all that sort of stuff that Nutanix is famous for. And of course, the support wrapper around that. I think that's really what they're trying to deliver here. They talk about one experience for everything, whether you're running an AI workload or, whether you're deploying a virtual machine or whether you're deploying containers. And, I'm seeing that now with customers specifically that have already invested in Nutanix, seen the benefit of it, and just from a simple workload like a virtual machine type workloads, now looking at saying, okay, well, we can do containers on this. So either we can go, the OpenShift way, or we can roll our own, or we can actually just embrace what Nutanix have done and get that time to value massively accelerated. Instead of trying to build the platform yourself, which we know that's something a lot of industries, and particularly if you've got a lot of developers in-house, there's a big temptation to do that. But then there comes a reality, right, on the day 2, day 3 operations when the developer's had enough, tinkering with the platform. He's gone and he's built his applications, and this thing becomes this sort of neglected child over here that doesn't get any attention and love, and nobody wants to touch it because the operations team doesn't want to go near it because they don't understand it.
And I think particularly around for the infrastructure guys, outside of the old-fashioned infrastructure space, i.e. workloads and storage, when we start talking about AI and containerization, those are exactly the places at the moment where typically developers have been at the forefront of deploying whatever technologies are going to be used, which is fine in the development cycle. But the minute we get anywhere near production, is just not a great place to be. You've been doing quite a bit of work already with containerization. You've got a couple of customers deploying.
Yeah, certainly interested in it, and we're looking at their use cases and how we can basically support them on that journey. A lot of them, they've got this particular application they want to build, or it's actually not being driven so much by the vendors yet. I've asked around a little bit, and I heard sometimes numbers 30%. Sometimes numbers are claimed to be bigger than that in terms of major application stacks are not being containerized. But this is more driven, as you say, it's the internal development teams that are building applications, and from day one they're developing them in containers, and now they need to find a way to deploy and operate that. So that's really where our conversations are coming from, or my conversations with customers are. It's still quite early days. If you look at NKP, it's a really brilliant product in terms of how they've adopted just taking this vision of containers being completely portable, whether you want to run it on bare metal, whether you want to run it on Nutanix, whether you want to run it in the cloud. The idea is you've got that complete portability, and Nutanix have accommodated for all of that in the way that the product has been engineered and is sold. So customers tend to start with looking at saying, okay, because I've already got Nutanix infrastructure, I've probably already got some NKP licensing like NKP Starter. Probably doesn't have all the bells and whistles and features you'll want, so you might need to look at NKP Pro or Ultimate, but you can deploy that right there on your Nutanix cluster. Or if you want to go, create a whole new environment and deploy it on bare metal, then you can do that too. So that's the beauty of it, that quick out starting blocks and get going with your strategy around containerization.
Yeah. And obviously a similar story with the AI front. It was a long time. What was it? 3 years. I mean, I say a long time ago. Wasn't that long ago? Was it 2-3 years ago? ChatGPT in a box it wasn't even a product really, but it was this is what we're bringing you in the next 6 months. And now they have a full inferencing platform that again very similar to the Kubernetes platform, in the fact that we can if you want to use an NVIDIA GPU server node, you can bring that into the ecosystem, but manage it in one place. Which again, in the speed that people are having to roll this stuff out right now, is really important. Again, I think we can't highlight too much how complex these environments are, when actually all the business cares about is it wants to get AI up and running as fast as possible. All the infrastructure team are worried about is, can we make it compliant? What's the governance behind it? Can we keep our data safe? And can we keep this thing running 24/7? It's very different. And in fact, a lot of those conversations, I think, are even more important. We're really big on that pre-discussion in terms of a technology evaluation. Let's understand what you're trying to do properly, and let's get the right people in the room to talk about how we move that forward. I think particularly when we start to talk about those more cloud-like technologies, so AI and containers, we need to have a much bigger conversation, and we probably need to bring in stakeholders from around the business. And in fact, in every AI conversation I've had so far, the first part of that conversation is workshops with the business and what they're going to use it for, and how that, because that really prescribes where this stuff is best ideally suited, the investment. And again, unlike workloads, we're not just bringing in something that they bought off the shelf from somewhere else. It's going to have to be developed in some way. It's a very different beast.
Absolutely. The answer is AI. What's the question? That's really we got to start there, right? So that's exactly how it is with a lot of our customers now. They know they need to do something with this new technology, and they're not quite sure what and how. But once you go down that journey, then you've got to start thinking about the consumption of the tokens and the cost of doing that. And if you start consuming that in a cloud context, that's going to get really expensive really quickly. It's great for a little POC. You start putting that into production, and those bills are going to start rolling in. So I think Nutanix have looking at this from two angles. The one is that you can build an AI platform which you can deploy in a private cloud context. So already, you've got a ring fence around your data, and you can control the costs. And then you've got all the governance tools around that, to manage that. And now they're going further. That Nutanix has seen themselves as a sort of an AI gateway that you can consume with their cost and governance controls around the consumption of AI, but consuming that in different spaces that even necessarily be inside of Nutanix. So they're doing a lot of clever stuff. I'm still getting my head around it. It's quite new. I only heard about this last week, so it's a little bit needs to stew a little bit before I get my head around how we can take that to customers and address their specific use cases. But there's definitely that. And then, there's a whole realm of cybersecurity. I don't know if you've got anything to say on that, because it's, we're in a bit of a war here. It's almost like the nuclear arms race again. On the one hand, you've got AI technologies developing, being used to create new malicious attack vectors, and now we've got have to increase the use of AI inside of cybersecurity products. It feels a little bit like a mutually assured destruction scenario, doesn't
it? Absolutely. I don't think that's going to change. Well, I think their focus on products like Data Lens, the fact that they're extending that from just being a pure storage product, is a good sign of intent in terms of how they're going to push that platform, and the fact that they're starting to build, starting to extend their AI capability into other products, I think is really encouraging. Particularly because now we're asking, however simple we talk about, running an AI platform is in Nutanix in comparison to building that on bare metal, and it is. But actually, if you then have to run containers, AI, object storage, workloads, we're still asking people to do more and more. And let's face it, I don't think any of my customers have got an extra sysadmin in the last 12 months. I doubt many that do. So, we're asking those people to do more.
Absolutely, yeah. Back to your point on Data Lens, I don't know if you were in the demo session where they showed, from the point of attack until full recovery, what was it, 2 minutes? I thought that was brilliant. And the thing is, we've been talking about this for a long time with our customers, and we have some really excellent, backup and recovery products in the stable that many of our customers have deployed. But it's kind of always looking at after the damage has been done. It might be 24 hours until you've discovered, the infiltration, because that's when your backup product picks it up. And, Rubrik, for example, does an excellent job at that. But in today's fast-moving world, that's even 24 hours is too late, right? You've got to kind of defend at the front line, really, when it's coming in. And that's what Data Lens is doing really well, providing that initial visibility and being able to, do the mitigation straight off the bat. So that was the one thing. The other thing that we're seeing, a lot more of our customers are taking on board the Flow microsegmentation product, as alongside the Flow virtual networking product, how that's matured. And now with Flow microsegmentation alongside being able to control and monitor, traffic flows east-west in the data center. Putting in takes a bit of work to get the tagging in place so that you can fully understand what your environment looks like. But once you have that, Nutanix does a lot of work through Security Central to actually show you how the data is moving in your environment, setting those baselines, and then creating policies around monitoring and enforcing traffic flows in that environment. So I think you kind of need to look at all of these things together. There's no single solution that's going to fix your security risks. Nutanix plays a big part in this, and have a number of really good solutions that I saw demonstrated, which was really good.
Yeah. The hardware side of things as well, a big challenge for Nutanix as it is with everyone else. And great to see the storage, the disaggregated HCI or whatever the way it's being discussed today, but basically all of a sudden putting a storage block inside an HCI environment. Cynically, I thought that was just a one-off to please certain vendors at the time. Sorry, Nutanix. But actually, that's being extended a lot further. So, we see like a whole plethora of storage units now outside of the first two that were announced. We saw a great demo of a conversion from VMware to AHV on the Everpure platform. where they were moving terabytes of data in 30 seconds. And it's clever metadata manipulation, but the fact that you can do that migration so simply with the same data is phenomenal. And of course, at the moment, where not only are we seeing much better compression ratios on dedicated storage units, but we're not having to use the same number of SSD drives, which right now, when an SSD drive is costing as much as a server used to, all of a sudden for those large storage environments, it's actually making commercial sense to go that route.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said it's sacrilege. Disaggregated HCI, what does that even mean? But it's true. The real use cases we're seeing here and the real challenges the customers are facing, it makes sense. And, we have a lot of customers who've got their buying cycles are completely split up. They'll buy storage in 1 year, and the next year they'll buy software in the year after. They'll buy their servers, etc. So it's really hard to actually, get that point where it makes sense for them to go down the HCI route. And if they've made an investment, these days we've got NetApp, we've got Pure, got Dell, got Lenovo, probably forgotten some Cisco. There's a whole bunch of options available to customers now when it comes to external storage systems that they can now consume existing investments with Nutanix. And I think everyone is recognizing that Nutanix has got a great hypervisor. AHV can do a lot, and Nutanix's management plane is brilliant.
Yeah.
And having the ability to bring that into an existing environment, it kind of becomes a no-brainer, especially in the sort of Broadcom world that we occupy today, so that's where the traction seems to be right now.
Superb. Any other big bits that caught your eye?
Yeah, you noticed I've got my little crib notes over here. There's just so much I couldn't possibly remember it all, but I think we've done a good start here. I mean, there's a few new announcements around Nutanix Unified Storage. With the ability to now tier out your data. It's already been doing this for a while in AWS and Azure, but now Google and OVH Cloud are supported on that. So that gives you the ability to, keep a sort of fairly small, high performance, active data footprint on-prem, and everything else from a sort of archive perspective. You just push that out into the cloud, but it's still accessible through the front-end file system. I don't think there's anything we haven't covered. In terms of the detail, there probably is tons, but we've got enough of we're getting a prompt here. We haven't mentioned Nerdio. That was your fault, John. You didn't mention Nerdio. I'm sure that was on you.
I didn't mention Nerdio. No. Well, look, the whole VDI platform is not just Nerdio, but actually specifically with Nerdio and their work with AVD, and the fact that now we can run. We can extend the Microsoft platform to be running those desktops in-house.
Yeah.
Nerdio has always been the best product in terms of that management of the AVD environment. And to be able to extend that directly, use the same management tool for those desktops, do it in Microsoft as well as on the Nutanix platform is really, really key.
I knew you'd do a better job than me, but you know who'd do a better job than you? Neil. I think we need to get Neil on the show next time.
Neil. Because in fact, he went to the Nerdio show where they were only talking about Nutanix. So.
And Neil's the man when it comes to desktops, so he knows his stuff around that. So absolutely, we need to have another chat with him.
And so, final thing, what was your favorite part about Chicago in terms of .NET?
I'm a sucker for a demo. Yeah. A real demo, not a pre-recorded one, and there were a lot of those, and that was really good.
I was going to say exactly the same. Yeah. I thought the quality of the breakouts this year, in terms of real-world examples and not necessarily live demos, but recorded demos, made it a lot more interesting. When you're in a meeting room from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. It's a lot to sit and just keep taking in information. But yeah, the demos were superb and very relevant to what we're talking to customers about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not big on the theory. I like to see it in action, and that's great that it's an actual product. It's not slideware. These are real things.
Which of course is a prompt to customers as well, because that's exactly what ETWorks do, right?
Yep.
We will demo that for you. We'll, if need be, help you build a POC or pilot and help you get that underway rather than just promise that something will work and then try and deliver it later.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to see you again, John. And when we see you again in the winter, when's it going to be?
Well, yeah.
Around the fire. But for now, let's enjoy the summer heat.
Cheers, Franz.
Cheers.